Ba-dum-ba. Hey, I'm Nick G. This is my couch. I was just trying to triangulate, so I blocked the window. But on the other hand, I know Hillary Clinton, when she does her video thing, she uses filters, and I'm getting that youthful glow from the filter, from the light in the window. So I think I'm going to leave it. Look at how youthful I look. So I titled this joint, Living a Literal Life. What is a literal life? What is literal? I just finished watching Parks and Recreation. You know what I mean? And Rob Lowe's character, Chris, what the words, Chris, whatever. And literally is every sentence that says. You know what I'm saying? All right, not literally every sentence, but literally is his catchphrase, his gimmick. I freeze. I mean, I know I did freeze here, but let me see if I can't close out some of this joint. Ba-doop, ba-doop. Hi there. We don't think about how much reach we have. You dig what I'm saying? We talk about the male loneliness epidemic. We talk about how people no longer have community because they have the screens in the face. This screen is in my face, and I'm looking at the people that are just joining and joining and joining. That is one more screen in the face. So what started off as this cat right here pressing that live button right there and starting to chirp turned into a community of other people who I'm talking to. And they're right there in the chat. I can see them. There are names. And they can communicate back to me. And why aren't they talking right now, man? I ain't said nothing yet. But I'm about to. Because I want to talk about living a literal life. I'll get into other crap. But it's important that I set up the basis of where I'm thinking. The literal life. What is literal life? Right now, my clock right here says 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven. So if later on I'm talking about right now, this moment at 7-Eleven, where I got WWE 2K26 going, where I got a live chat going, and later on in the day, I'm not going to be talking to somebody being like, yeah, like around 7:15, I was talking about living a literal life. What a literal life would mean is later on in the day. And I'm talking about hanging out right now. Okay, we'll go central. Literally, Kathy, you are at 6-Eleven. Later in the day when I'm talking, telling my story about WWE 2K26 and doing a live, I'll have to say at 7-Eleven, I was talking about it. And at 7:12, I finished it. That's living a literal life. I created exact data in communication, right? That's what everything is, communication. When we talk, it's communication. When I pause, it's communication. I was trying to do my little rock eyebrow. It wasn't happening. If you smell. Everything is communication. Talking is communication. Not talking is communication. Wearing a shirt is communication. I remember this one dude, he used to be my roommate, and he was so in this Republican hyperbolic bubble, bubble, that when he was talking to a girl on Bumble, she referred to herself as conservative. This man wore a shirt with a big elephant on it. Not Republican, not GOP, not MAGA. He heard the word conservative and connected it with a Republican logo. communication. What she was saying was, she was kind of a traditional person who stuck to her small values of simpleness. You know what I'm saying? Conservative. Even bouncing off that, I wrote a piece called Republican. Say Republican. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about how we call Republicans conservatives, which is so silly, because we all know that there ain't nothing conservative about them, right? Right? I mean, we do know that. To conserve is to preserve, is to maintain. You dig what I'm saying? They don't do that. They wreck, they push, they deconstruct. I mean, you think about what we're doing in the Supreme Court right now. All these decisions, we're all, yay, birthright citizenship is still here, but is it? It is. I mean, it is. You hold it up. You hold up the Constitution because they all fit in our hands now. But you hold up the Constitution, and what of it? We got people who are in the Supreme Court who, when they were aides to Supreme Court justices, when they were in school educating and trying to impress their friends with their intellect and tact and wit, they were writing these papers. And you may be shocked to find this out, that we're trying to get rid of birthright citizenship, that we're trying to get rid of personhood. You know what I'm saying? That we're trying to get rid of all these rights. They were arguing against gay folks being able to do gay folk things, trans people's right to express themselves as their inside feel out. I do it. I mean, shit. If you ever see me wearing a wrestling tee, that's me expressing myself out. It's a little bit conservative. Same thing with my son. And the way that I explained a kind of simpatico to him, he's a younger dude, 13, just had a birthday. He's a Bills fanatic. He's a football fanatic. It's something that is not part of me. It's not part of his mom. He had no outside influence. It was something that he just took to and has become his entire identity, is he loves the Bills. When me and my son are out at a restaurant, Josh Allen is sitting with us in spirit, because homeboy is always talking about the Bills football. He will break down people's plays through listening to the statistics and, you know, all the conversations, just so we can get that tangible concept of football. He's talking about like ACL tears and stuff, this 13-year-old kid. And I'm like, I just learned medicine stuff from you, sir. Not that it's in the same weight. It's in the same weight of me being able to project myself, to exist. I was born in 1977. I'm as old as Star Wars. I'm as old as Elvis is dead. I'm as old as Donald Trump is a Russian asset. Dig it? When I watched TV growing up, I mean, there was the new stuff that changed a little bit, you know what I mean, as modernity. But I grew up watching all the same reruns that my parents watched. They watched it in prime time. The Jetsons was a primetime show. The Flintstones was a primetime show. We watched, and then you had Nick at Night, which brought it all together. I could speak to my dad about Dick Van Dyke and Patty Duke. I personally want to fist fight Dobie Gillis, because I would have jumped at Zelda from day one, episode 1. That woman had a thing for you and would have made sure that you were taken care of for life, Mr. Dobie Gillis. And did you also know, now that I talked about Dobie Gillis, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo was based on Dobie Gillis's homeboy, Maynard G. Krebs, who was played by Bob Denver. Bob Denver? Bob Denver. Is that the singer? Anyway, Gilligan was Maynard G. Krebs. And his big gimmick, he had the sweatshirt. And as the seasons went on, there was like this hole in the sweatshirt that ripped, and it got bigger. It was like kind of like a grunge kind of like don't care. But it's like anytime someone would say work, Maynard G. Krebs would be like, work, like it offended him. But I was able to communicate with my older generational people because we watched the same stuff. So I could shorthand a quick Leave It to Beaver. And, even more than now that I think about that, when I was growing up, that's when you started having like the Looney Tunes was just, you had them not just on the weekends, you know what I mean, on Cartoon Day, but they had whole blocks and sessions of them and stuff like that. So my grandfather and I, we'd be watching like Looney Tunes. We'd be watching like Popeye and stuff like that. That's his era shit in the sense that Looney Tunes was that 40s and 50s. I mean, it goes back a little bit further. But Popeye was legitimate. Popeye was contemporary when it came out. And it was like the shorts and stuff that they played, in between like a big movie or, something they'd play in between, films and a matinee during the day. So my grandfather, born in 1913, you know what I'm saying? 20-year-old dude in the 40s, 30s, whatever, comes up. Their depression. I grew up with my grandparents in my teenhood. They were Depression era. I grew up with my Depression era grandparents. My grandfather had every nail, hinge, and screw that was in his former garage, in his new garage, in little containers, you know what I mean, up on the wall. He was that kind of old school. And when I was younger and I had nothing to do, boom, 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 we'd straighten out those nails. Old school. But I was able to talk to my grandparents, at least my grandfather, through those kinds of cartoons. You know what I mean? Popeye references the Dust Bowl, as does Looney Tunes, historical stuff. There'd be like a quick visual. Beep, beep, beep. There'd be a quick actor that would be, and I just want this. And, my grandfather would be cackling and I'd be like, well, tell me about this dude, and that was how you got that. But I was talking about community shortly ago. And now as our community is building up here with the folks that are coming in on the chat, you know what I mean? That's what we have. We have that discussing among generationals, discussing among experience that opens up the idea that this can be done. In politics, we've lost that. We've lost that because, like how I said, I was talking about my grandparents that were from the Depression era. My grandmother would tell me stories about her dad, the guy that came from Italy, her mom, the woman that came from Italy. You know what I'm saying? My grandfather would be talking about the Mackmore farm. Mackmore was their surname. And he'd be talking about that, Scottish people. They came over as I'm reading it, and this is kind of my interpretation, not my actual credentialed decree. But my mom, when I would ask as a kid, and mind you, I didn't talk to adults. I'm now, like I said, I was born in 77. I'm going to be 49 in October, right? Right now, I work with people where I'm the young buck with a bunch of children kind of under me, but I'm the young buck amongst the higher echelon of people. Like at any given time, I'm in the lower quarter of aged people. So when I'm talking to these guys, they can speak this generational talk to me. And only now am I comfortable looking adults in the eye and having discussions with them and looking in their faces and talking back and questioning and commenting. Whereas literally up until like a decade ago, that was not me. I'm almost 50. And I didn't have that generational confidence because I got to a point where grown folks didn't talk to me, the child. And when they did, it was in a patronic way. You know what I'm saying? Patronizing me. They'd be, oh, you don't want to eat that. We're going to get chicken today. And which, of course, me, the kid, all right, I guess I'll just do chicken. You know what I mean? And everything. Oh, you don't want to do that. You want to look into that. You want to go to this school instead. You know what I mean? And everything was patronizingly spoken to me. Or if they did, hey, Nicholas, come out here. You know what I mean? It was like, do something entertaining, do the trick, show the people. In which case, after I did my gimmick, I'd be dismissed. Which is really that old school children go over there, be seen, not heard, and adults do their adult thing. You know what I mean? And that was the old school that I was brought up with. But that's also part of the community. There used to be a time where you came up in the community you had around you. I grew up in Whitehall, New York. It's a smaller town. I have a lot of uh, people I grew up with and friends who, they married, they worked, they raised their families. Their lives are still in Whitehall, and I, I long to it. Like it's a cute small town thing. You watch TV, watch people's videos as they're talking about their real world life, which is part of the community that we all have. And when I think about it, I relate to it. Like I watched Jenny Gage. Jenny Gage is a former Mormon, former white nationalist. She was in like the Utah Mormon area. I think now she's in Arizona, something like that. But she does her videos where she had this realization after her husband and her had split. She had this realization that, whoa, I was living in this mysterious world of bullshit, and it affects her. And so now she lives her life trying to get out of that kind of stuff. And that's the community that it got. She started seeing other people. She started having friends who were gay, trans, different racials. You know what I mean? Your community is what gives you the opportunity, gives you a chance to relate. So what I relate to her, and it for all effects and purposes, you know what I'm saying? I'm a cis white dude. I am agnostic. I believe in spirituality. I have my own faith, and no, you're not going to put a corporate sticker on it. Boop, boop. Because I think that anybody who says I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm a whatever, and they don't follow the practices and they don't meet the criteria of recipient in the faith, to still call yourself that is, yeah, I make the case for the poser where somebody is learning to become where some point they embody. But that's not what we're doing with religion, which is also part of the theme for my vid, living a literal life. Why are you calling yourself a Christian if you don't do Christian things? Why are you calling yourself a Jew if you don't follow the freaking Torah or the practices or agree with? You dig what I'm saying? But that comes to the community. We used to have to do that stuff to fit in. Just like Hispanics that could pass as white would say they were Italian instead of saying, hey, I'm Hispanic. I'm brown people. I'm just a little bit less brown. You know what I mean? You would say it and you would build a narrative so that you could find community. I read a thing and it said that, young people are drinking less. And somebody was, I almost feel like it was Adam Mockler, and that peed me off. And I'm like, look, kid, there's nothing wrong with people drinking less. There's nothing wrong with people not going to bars. You know what I mean? The case that started to be an issue was they were like, oh no, people aren't going to bars. People used to go to bars because that's where other people were. And we've lost the perspective that that's why there have been so many toxic relationships. You know what I mean? You were always, the patriarchy 100 years ago was always trying to sell their youngest off to a wealthy man. So they had that connection, the familial raise up. My grandmother, and I was talking about my grandfather, the Italian immigrant, was a little peed off when she married the one guy from the farm who didn't want to farm, didn't get a cut of the farm, got none of the value of the farm. She just got a dude with the last name of that major ass farm over there. You know? It used to be a marrying thing where now we don't have that. When people could divorce, they started divorcing. And, they painted it, us latchkey kids, you know what I'm saying? We all kind of champion that now as being this self-resolving. But what it gave us was it gave us independence. My son and I recently were talking, and he was talking about how women are built different. And I was like, oh, contraire. Women aren't built different. I mean, biologically, you know what I'm saying? The guts, the organs, the science, yada, yada. But as far as the difference being, him and I were talking about sports. That's kind of his bag, sports. We were talking in the sense that, and like I was just talking about 100 years ago, when they'd farm out their next daughter out to somebody, hopefully, who was rich, who could get them dividends. But the woman was treated as property. You know what I mean? You'd be 25 years old. By any measure now, you'd be a grown woman, still a kid, obviously, to us older heads, but, you'd still be a grown woman at 25 years old with a long-ass ponytail, living with your parents, or you'd have like a bob to show you have now moved on to adult things, and you'd be trying to court somebody, hopefully rich, that would take possession of you from your parents, from your father, actually, because your mom was not allowed to have a bank or loan or divorce. You dig it? But we don't have that now. Now we live in a different life because we're able to see everybody. I mean, I know I'm a wrestling head, so I follow wrestling heads. I see a luchador mask. I see luchadors. I see, people wrestling overseas. I see there's this one ma over there in Japan, and she's like this little tiny lady, and she's always wrestling up against this inflatable panda suit. And it's funny because she does those anime moves, and it's hilarious. I watched this episode where this 7-year-old little kid beat Kenny Omega. Fantastic, by the way. But we're able to see enough culture to know that there's differences. So when I'm getting my Instagram feed, I get the differences of the wrestling culture in Mexico, of the wrestling culture in Japan, of the wrestling culture in America, which now that we're in the modern era, the curtain has been pulled back. We are no longer in the world of kayfabe, which is what makes me love politics in this moment right now, because I'm teaching people the art of kayfabe while they're realizing they've been watching a stage show for all these years. But I'm seeing the diversity of people. You know what I mean? On my Insta feed, it's women bodybuilders, it's women models, it's cosplayers, it's dudes doing dude things that isn't holding up a fish or showing off their gun. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to do now the things that we'd always done. We can live that literal life. If you want to go running and be fast, women have the ability now to go train and be fast and do all the things that are strength. Charlene, I think that's a fantastic point. Let me read this out loud. I don't know. I still believe that the strides that women have made, we never have the respect as equals, and discrimination do and will always exist. And to that point, yeah. But the literal life that I'm starting to talk about, the literal life concept that's solid in here, is important because it's exactly what I'm talking about. We're not having honest conversations amongst ourselves. Jennifer Welch is somebody in media where she kind of spans. But the benefit of when she's talking about how I come from here. This is what I know. This is how I was raised, her core. And this is where I see it now as I learn and expand. But then you got Midas, Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pakman, the Crooked Media Podjohns, the Bulwark. And by the way, the Bulwark is Republicans who do not meet our progressive standards. But what I'm learning, and I'm trying to find a way to write it where I'm not like in a neener way. But it's important to know that all those people, so your CNN, MSNBC, Midas, Bulwark, Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pakman, I want to say Adam Mockler, but I haven't formalized that. They're communicating behind the scenes, no different than a Republican. Hey, Natasha, that's a piece that I'm trying to work out. Oh, I got this much data. And I got so much data on this topic, Natasha, about how they're doing the exact same thing that Republicans do behind the scenes on a Signal chat where they get their thing together. That when I wrote my piece that just dropped today, my piece is called Hakeem Jeffries Plays America, Crooked Man, Crooked House, Crooked Money. I was able to derive so much content from my network, Democratic people, those smiling faces that we love. You dig what I'm saying? Those people who we accredit to progressive messaging and the bettering of us, they're Democratic operatives. And I don't mean democracy as in here we have people in the chat and we can all raise our hand boop, boop, and pull a lever. I'm talking about democratic as in Democratic Party, the private group that organizes a candidate so that we don't organize ourselves as small people to provide a black candidate, a woman candidate, an intellectual candidate, an economically trained candidate, a political science major candidate, a candidate with a wider knowledge of history. I personally make the case for Laree Daniel Favors because when that woman talks, I catch myself having to shut my goddamn mouth because it's hanging agape because I can't believe had I known these facts, I'd be able to explain this easier. But you know what that lesson is? Learn from Howard University, y'all. I promote a 30-day white media blackout. 30-day white media blackout. Where you're tuning in to Roland Martin instead of the Midas Touch. Where you're tuning in to Clay Kane, you're in the Conscious Lee, Reese Colbert, Native Land Pod. And like I say, you let everybody have the direction that they're coming from. But what white people need is to hear black people talking to black people. I watched the Jam, that's 2 A's, JAAM, and I listened to 2, sometimes 3 black dudes, young black men, talk about YNs and all this other stuff, and it doesn't mean I'm going to start saying it. You need to learn how people speak to each other when they're speaking to each other. One of the things that I heard my bad. One of the things that I heard, and I don't remember, I don't know, but I almost want to attribute to another conversation also that I heard with Erica Alexander talking to Questlove on Questlove Supreme. Oh, that was a mind-blowing. I was in a really nice learning about Black experience place at that time. At that time, I listened to Erica Alexander on Questlove. I read Michael Harriot, Black AF. And I read Elia Mistal, Allow Me to Return, like all in the same block sequence. And it was like, oh, Epiphany City. But I was listening to somebody who was talking about how they went from somewhere, and I want to feel like it was maybe on Questlove Supreme, another great podcast. But they were talking about when they went to Howard University and they were able to be around just black people. And it wasn't like being around, what's up, Derek? It wasn't like being around black people. It was just being around people. And being able to be around people and have people dialogues with people that were just peoply and common to them and let them have their differences from where they come from but not their differences as far as like their skin color or culture. You know what I'm saying? Just their local culture. Like me, I live right here in Glens Falls, Hudson Falls. You know what I mean? We have our culture, which is very suburban. But I also come from Whitehall, where you'd walk 5 miles because you couldn't get a ride home from your friend's house. You know what I'm saying? And it would be 5 miles before you got to a street light where you turned to go to the road that went in town. You know what I mean? So it's all relative that you can relate. Nothing. Charlene, nothing is being said, nothing is being heard. We call Republicans conservative when they're anything but. We don't call them Republicans. We call them a nickname, a moniker. If every time we said Republicans, 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 they would be as offended to be a Republican as I am when somebody calls me a liberal. Because when they'd say liberal, they'd always say it with so much stank. Liberal. You'd see it in their face. Their body language would be a full body eye roll. Liberal. And it's so much to the point that I do not want to be called liberal. I'm not liberal. Why does somebody who I never met get to decide that I'm a liberal? I'm a fucking conservative, man. I'm a conservative. Why do I call myself a conservative? Because I live a literal life. I want everything that I'm living right now to stay the same. I want to preserve a place where I can walk out and not mow my lawn, which I got to do tomorrow, danged anyway. I want to live in a place where my black girlfriend and I can live our lives and not be bothered. You know what I'm saying? I live in a pretty nice joint to the point where I believe that after all y'all fuck up your other states, you're coming here to the Adirondack, New York area because it's fucking beautiful. We have 46 mountains that you can climb. We have the Hudson River. We have beautiful, beautiful farms that you look out and you're amazed at God's beauty that has been created through gases being pressed together. You dig what I'm saying? You don't get that elsewhere. You can stand somewhere in, Arizona or New Mexico and be like, and God created this too. Cool story, bro. This place is the bomb diggity. This is the place that literal capital P patriots came and fought for your freedom from England, and they're still buried here on my friends' properties, and we can't touch them. Dead people. You dig what I'm saying, man? Hey, you know what, Natasha? I'm gonna say this also. I'm gonna say this also. When I think about the West Coast, very much the same. Like I feel like the coasts in this top southern Canada echelon, I think they got the bomb digs about halfway down. America's an amazing place. But when I say that, we talk about us not having community. What we've lost is the local community. And I'm kind of okay with that because most of the people I grew up with, they can kind of be pieces of shit. You know what I mean? I mean, they're the ones flying the MAGA flags. I got a dude down the road at the Owl House who took, and it was only up for 24 hours, but he had a Confederate flag flying upstate New York. He had a Confederate flag flying for like less than 24 hours. And when I woke up the next day, it was taken down. I'm not sure if that was politics inside his house or an external force that said, hey, dog. But it happened. But they don't call it the Confederate flag around here. That's racism. They call it the rebel flag because Skinnerd. You know? Which brings me again to my literal life and the case for the poser. We live around here. Everybody wears their camouflage, their Day-Glo orange to show you that they go hunting, which is fine. Everybody wears their truck nuts. The people that stand out are the ones that go above and beyond, that go on with the caricature of being MAGA. You know, Derek, and with that, not everybody's the same. I was talking to my homeboy the other day. We kind of just met at work. You know what I mean? And so they're just kind of starting to get to know me as a quantity. Everybody else just kind of they're around. I'm an experience. You know when I'm there. I have a shirt. I'm not wearing it now, obviously, but it says there's a good day. There's a bad day. And then there's Nick Guyette is here today because that's the truth. You dig what I'm saying? I was talking to another person in this gimmick and she was telling me, you should start a podcast. I could listen to you talk all day. And I told her that might work because I can talk all day. But I was telling my dude, going back to my guy Derek, New York State is a blue state. Where I live is not a blue area. Most of my people are Tea Partiers. Dig it? Which has a tendency to lean right by default. Because the Tea Partiers, the message as it's astroturfed to them, is they're being told. They're being told you have to be gay. They're being told you have to be trans. They're being told that you have to go and use a litter box, Mr. Cat. And they just want people to back the fuck up off them. They don't want their taxes being taken to go fight a war someplace else. They don't want their taxes being taken to go to somebody. And let me say about my literal life. While we're talking about caricature people, the welfare queens, the crackheads. Let me side quest on crackheads. I want to put everybody on notice. We get a little loose with the word crackhead. Right? If you are not doing crack, you are not a crackhead. Literally. Dig it? Now that's part of being mindful of your literal life. But we do have crackheads here. We do have welfare queens here. And I mean that in a literal sense. But it's not in the televised way. It's not in the talking head guy with a tie. Hi there, buddy. Welfare queens taking your money, taxpayer. It's not like that, but we have them. Which means, taxpayer, our taxes aren't being allocated in the correct way. There isn't the assistance that's being given to the person who is so comfortable in their welfare system that they stay comfortable. I'm comfortable. I have a new job. I have 3 days off. I don't have to go to work until Tuesday afternoon. I like my old job. I worked 3 days a week. I had 4 days off. Now, Charlene, that comes down to something different than being literal. Almost everybody is a crackhead because we bend over and get it shoved up the arse. Now, that's not a literal criticism. That's a perspective change. Because we all got a butt crack. So that could make us a crackhead. That's funny. But that's the value of being literal. You dig what I'm saying? The value of being literal. We spend so much time in hyperbolic. I call it like a zip file. Like in The Little Mermaid, I think about when Ursula's disguising as Ariel and the gig is up. I use The Mandalorian as an example. The Mandalorian has a logo. When you see the logo, if you're immersed in the Star Wars universe, that logo is to unlock a whole content. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Star Trek head. When someone starts speaking Star Trek, they open new levels of Star Trek isms that I can speak to them. Because are you going to talk to me a little bit about Captain Kirk? Are you going to talk to me a little bit about Lieutenant Broccoli? You know what I'm saying? Are you going to speak to me about wormhole aliens? It all comes down to communication. By living a literal life, by recognizing your literal way of speaking, right? You're communicating exactly what you're hearing, what you're meaning. We don't live that literal life. I watched Donald Trump, other Republican folks, whatever, stand at their podiums with their little microphones, and they talk about communism and socialism and Sharia law, and they're gonna get you, Hitler. And it's like, bro, you're just using words that mean bad. We aren't saying the thing. Natalie Harp, a human being who has got documentation. She has parents who named her Natalie, and I'm assuming that their parents' last name is Harp. I don't know because I don't look into it. But if she has no children she will have will be named Harp. They will be her children, the children of Natalie Harp. The human printer is like something you see on anime. The man with the chainsaw arms. The human printer. If you've ever watched Criminal Minds, CSI, any of them forensic joints, they're always telling you, do not, media person, do not give this a fucking nickname. And what do? We give Natalie Harp, the latest handler for Donald Trump, right? The latest handler for Donald Trump. We give her a nickname, so it obscures. Notice there's no Melania. Melania from, East Europe. Donald Trump has been an asset since 1977. If you look into the Epstein class, and I'm not referring, Epstein's a node. Epstein's a gimmick. Epstein is a means. Dirty John's hot dogs, called New Way Lunch hot dogs, colloquially, it's locally called Dirty John's, and that's only recently because it makes them money to just run with it. I know where I can go and get all them fucking hot dogs. They're old school, like you get on a boardwalk with the meat sauce and the onions. New Way Lunch, that was a staple in 1913 when it came out. 1913? Wait, that was my grandfather. 1910. But I'm talking about over there, Dirty John's hot dog. Now I can go and get the meal. I can go and get the box, the containment, and have my experience. But the hot dogs come from there. The experience is elsewhere. That's the way the Epstein class works. Epstein is New Way Lunch. They have their local franchises. That's where you go to get the hot dogs. The hot dog place, the Gazettas family, they invest as they invest. Epstein is a node. Epstein is a node by his handler, Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein, but no, he was a node to a bigger project. Ghislaine was the project. Epstein was the handler. Or Ghislaine was the handler for Epstein as the node. He was doing his job. He had the freedom to do his own thing, but it was different. He was a node in a multi-part machine, but there's always a handler. Robert Maxwell was not a node. Ghislaine Maxwell was the handler. As Donald Trump got married, each woman was into his life to influence him. Oh, absolutely, Derek. I must have just misunderstood. But yeah, we tack it all onto this one dude, Epstein. It's a partnership. And now that I'm saying that, it's like Epstein had Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein had Ghislaine Maxwell. Donald Trump had his wives, which were each his handlers of influence. You know what I'm saying? His handlers of influence. And I don't mean they're beep boop programmed like they're managing him. We don't know anything about Natalie Harp. They give us nothing about Natalie Harp. What we know about Natalie Harp, we learned from her family saying public stuff. We know about the propaganda that they put out, but we literally don't know who Natalie Harp is. We know the story. We know the kayfabe, same as we do about Melania Knaus. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Derek, you're right. Compromat starts with the K. There's more to Natalie Harp. A lot of the people who are in Trump's orbit aren't operative level. You dig what I'm saying? They're all asset level because they're dumbasses. Even Donald Trump, wow, he knows things. He's just a button. When I walk to a button and I push it, I correlate the button to the action. He's just the fucking button. If you have no wires and connections to the action, and we don't know who and what are the wires from the button to the action. You know what I'm saying? Think about all of the people in the White House. They're all brutally flawed, critically flawed, sycophantically flawed. That's not a measure of them doing it. See, now this comes to my literal point. We aren't literally covering these people. We're covering the little box boop, boop, with the title. The noises that come out of the box boop, boop, with the title. And then we talk about those noises that came out of the box as if they were real. J.D. Vance giving a quote saying things is not coverage. Why cover it? J.D. Vance said these things. He is wrong. This is real. That's the coverage. But why will we get 10 to 15 videos, white media, David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, every freaking member of Midas Touch, one at a time, plus all together, all have to do a video that says the same shit. Plus, Popok and Ben each get their separate recap video where they bookend, hi, this is Ben. This is what you get from Midas content. And then at the end, and now like, subscribe, share, subscribe to Substack, to blah, 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 $8 a job, $8 an app, $8 this. Bro, by the end, you realize you kicked out $30 just for Midas. When it could have been 10 Substack accounts of new journalism that actually do the fucking work for $3 each. Nikki, you're saying the thing. You're saying the thing. We are given... No, let me go to a different place. I have trouble watching sitcoms. Because they don't look like they interacted until that light went on, until the scene went off. It's just so ingenuine. It's so simple. The reaction is so overblown. Oh, Jesus, man. We just got done watching Girlfriends, and Joan Clayton is like a one-woman improv of reaction. And that's the way that we're doing. That's the way that we're doing our stuff. We're improving a reaction. I can't do sitcoms because it's not genuine. When somebody delivers a line, maybe two, maybe a back and forth, what that tells me, what is the person that wrote it saying? You know what I'm saying? Hold on. I got to get back to what I was thinking because I get sidetracked really good. And it was off something. Honeypots. Yeah. So I can't do sitcoms because they're staged, they're simple, the lines don't connect, they're one off. But it's not about the entertainment factor. That's my problem with the way that we are covering all of this media stuff. You know what I mean? JD Vance says some stuff and we spend all this time talking about what he'd said. We aren't speaking on the history. We aren't speaking on how we got to Bill's past. I kept hearing the word birthright citizenship over and over and over in the last few days as people talk about covering the Supreme Court. Never once did I hear anybody talk about Pauli Murray. Pauli Murray she was queer. She dressed as a man, the men gear. It was from her writing that the 14th Amendment was written. Here we are in 2026. We're fucking with birthright citizenship. Wait, isn't that Dred Scott? Anyway, we're fucking with birthright citizenship. We're fucking with personhood. We're fucking with the rights of trans people. And here you have Pauli Murray, who should be an absolute icon in America. There should be statues to her. And nobody knows about her. Nobody gives her the credence she deserves, especially in a day like today. What do they call it? They just call that woke. I call that the 14th Amendment. You know what I'm saying? Personhood. Right to exist. We aren't living our literal life. Because we accept what somebody says and we don't look any further. We allow implication. I'm a conservative. I'm a proud blue dog Democrat. What the fuck does that mean? The fuck does that mean, dude? Over here, I'm in New York 21. Elise Stefanik's district. The Democrat, I can't pronounce his name. I never saw a yard sign until literally the day before Election Day. I'm not a Democrat. I didn't get to vote. Anthony Constantino, he lives in Amsterdam. He owns the company Sticker Mule. He is an online presence where he makes such a grotesque ass of himself every day that the only reason that I know the name of his opponent, Bob Smullen, is because Anthony Constantino would run day after day spam about Slime Bob. He got appreciated by Donald Trump, backed him. Roger Stone backed him. I don't know anything about the farm guy. No, I do not want sticker licker Anthony Constantino. But locally, there's this guy, Chris Schmidt. When he's doing his campaign stuff right now, he was going for signatures. Slime Bob Smullen. Chris Schmidt was going around getting his signatures. He's taking snapshots at Mandy's at the end of my block. I just told you about New Way Lunch, where you get dirt dogs. He had pictures of him there, pictures of him, in the woods camping, doing like real things, local things. And I encourage anybody to write him in, Chris Schmidt for New York 21. But we don't get a literal life. You know what I'm saying? Chris Schmidt is living a literal life. Anthony Constantino is living an online life where he wrote a rap song about how much he loves Donald Trump and what he called a house music song about how Mamdani is from Uganda, where they kill girls and rape girls and stuff and hate gays and kill gays. This is a guy running from my district. What does Mamdani in Uganda have to do with fuck? You know what I'm saying? Each state is its own little country. That's why governors are such a big deal, but we take it for granted because we lump everybody under a party. I'm a D, I'm an R. In order to be a D, I got to do this. Then they go to a gay bar. I'm a D. And then in order to be an R, they got to wear, they go and they wear the American flag. They put on a cowboy hat because America, because to America, on the Republican side, it's whatever the fuck cowboy shit you saw on TV. Funny thing about that, what you saw on TV was white people. The literal history is cowboy was black folks. Cattlemen were white. Derek, you know what, man? You saying that. Derek said every bar is a gay bar. Now, I'm talking about different states are entirely different populations. Different states are entirely different culture. In New York State, like I say, you got downtown Glens Falls. I live in Hudson Falls, which is kind of peripheral to downtown Glens Falls. Our area was settled from the King of England giving lots to Abraham Wing, in which he built the mill, Wing Mill, that's on the lot where I live. From that mill, which was where the Iroquois and French Canadian people met up to trap and trade. From this mill that was on a piece of land given by the King of England, this area was built, right? So I go back that far. But from where we are, from this mill, now we have a city. It's very suburban. They're in a renewal where they're starting to rebuild where there used to be a bar. Now there is a gastrik or a pub. You know what I mean? Come bring your family. And stuff like that. So the poor folks are being priced out. They're coming out here to Hudson Falls. Anyway, suburb, city life, all the bars are cranking rock, cranking hip hop, contemporary music. Up north, Warrensburg, it's like 45 minutes away. You go to Ashes. Ashes is the bar in Warrensburg, and it is country folk. Odds are pretty good. They wrote, yeah, hey, there you go. There you go. The grist mill. Wow. So you go over there and you're in Warrensburg, you go to Ashes, you're in there. They took their ATVs, they hopped in their trucks. They're salt of the earth, just dudes. They hunt, they fish, they do their thing. They play country music all day. You know what's in the jukebox when you get to Ashes? It's all rap and booty music. They have their country favorites, God bless the USA and all that jazz. You know what I mean? All that, try that in a small town, your Luke Bryan and stuff like that. But when it's crowded, everybody's in there shaking their rump because young people go there too. And young people don't buy into that. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I was just talking recently. There was this dude I started work with. He moved to a different shift, so I don't really talk to him now. But from day one, he would plug his device into the local speaker, and it was identity country music. You know what I mean? And it was all this is what we are, this is what we're not, country music. That was my impression of their songs. And then it'd be the most trap, the most N-word dropping, the most just hood, not even country, just hood. And as I'm listening, it's like this kid is split because he's in this modern era that definitely he grew up in a culture where country identity is his identity. But he grew up in this culture where you have access to all this community that's out there, that's multimedia, that's multicultural, multifaceted. And he's getting it at both sides. Now, he's young enough where he's impressionable, where it doesn't really translate. But 50-year-old dude listening to this 20-year-old kid with all this identity stuff. And in the same time, in the same playlist that had Lee Greenwood, you know, and then I'm listening to N-word dropping stuff. He wasn't picking up what I was picking up. Because what do I talk about? I talk about communication. Because communication is everything. Saying something is saying something. Saying nothing is saying something. Wearing a blank tee in a shop of logos is saying something. Wearing a logo in a blank space is a big deal. In a place you can't talk, having a word available is a big deal. Let me tell you about that. I make shirts for myself for work. They say Nick G on them. From day one, I was wearing Nick G shirts. Don't you know everybody knows who I am? They come, they talk to me. I've been there 2 months. There's a guy who's been there long enough. He's no longer in his probationary period. I have to wear this Dayglow hat so everybody knows, hey, there's the guy. He's new. There's a whole bunch of us that have to wear the hat. But I wear the Nick G shirt. Everybody knows who Nick G is. People who are from the office will come down to the floor and walk to Nick G because they can see Nick G on the roster. And they'll say, is this guy right here? And in my head, I'm thinking, he's been here 2 months more than me, dude. You don't know that man's name? But they know Nick G's name. Marketing. I learned it from wrestling. Professional wrestling is where they would bring a kayfabe stage show under the guise of being a fight. And they would go spot to spot within a territory. And then they'd circulate in talent from other territories. I mean, I remember when Junkyard Dog came to the WWF. Junkyard Dog was my guy, Sylvester Ritter. R.I.P. I know that, and this is me always loving to talk local, when I'm talking about The Undertaker and Kane, Glenn Jacobs and Mark Calloway met at the Glens Falls Civic Center 3 miles from where I live right now. They met for the first time. But Mark Calloway had to go to Tennessee to scout Glenn Jacobs in Jerry Lawler's territory in Tennessee. So how do these people get to know if they're traveling? Nobody gives a shit about just some guy. Because there's no money to be made off just some guy. So they'd have to build the guy up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like I just talked about Junkyard Dog. The name itself just makes you think Jim Croce, baby. He's meaner than a junkyard dog. There's an implication. At that time, there wasn't the intellectual commodification that we have now, of which you can thank Biz Markie for sampling James Brown and getting sued. That now, that's why we don't have cover music the way we used to. That's why we don't have little tids and bits, because everything's been, give me mines, give me mines. But that's why I put my name on my shirt. When you're watching wrestling, they would show up to a new territory. You don't know anybody in the crowd. Nick G. Nick G goes into that ring. You know Nick G. The next time you see me, depending on how I do. If I job out, who cares if it's Nick G? But if I win that match, the next time you see Nick G, yo, I saw that dude mop that dude's face. You know what I mean? We don't do enough in that our messaging. You know what I mean? We've gotten lazy. We just put a shorthand on it. We don't speak our literal mind. I listen to house music. House music. Now we call electronic music EDM. In the 80s, house music was called UDM. EDM being electronic dance music, where UDM was universal dance music. In the same beat, you'd be listening to conga drums. The next set, the next rhythm could be Spanish guitar. You know what I'm saying? The next cut that came in, the next record that got spun could be that absolute throaty from the toes gospel. And you just let that be house. But it's all disco. I just call it house. But it's not disco. Because they killed disco, am I right? Literally, we're just putting the names of different things under acceptable blankets. I say disco, and you start imagining the Bee Gees. I say disco, and you see the cover art for KC and the Sunshine Band. I'm not talking about that. That's what they sold to the white people. I'm talking about disco. I'm talking about funk. You know what I'm saying? And when I'm saying that, I'm not even talking about a genre. I'm not even talking about a time period like the 70s to the early 80s. I'm talking about a literal sound that will always be disco. Jamiroquai is disco. Jamiroquai is disco. Two Hype Brothers and a Dog. Doo-doo Brown. Down, 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 down. That's disco. Freestyle music is disco. We don't live the literal life where we explain things as we are. You know what I mean? That's why on the right-wing messaging, they get confused. What is a woman? When you are looking at an absolute smoke show, you know when you see a woman. You know when you approach this individual. Because on visual, you needed to be next to this aesthetic. You know you found a woman. I have met personally met trans men who I knew pre-transition. I'm a cis dude all day. I have always in my life preferred a female interface. But in transition, no matter how smoke show I thought the person was, when they're in their male incarnation, like, ew. It just ews me out. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like how some people just don't like cilantro because it tastes funky to them. We get confused because while we're shorthanding men and we're shorthanding women, we're losing the personal relationships that come after that knee-jerk aesthetic. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a knee-jerk aesthetic. Hey, I grew up in the 90s. Everything was given a Mac, throwing the line, being a player. My friends and I used to trade them back and forth. We used to practice them. We used to entertain people like it was a joke. You know what I'm saying? Checking a girl's label. Just like I thought. Made in heaven. You know what I'm saying? I can't watch Martin because I'm reminded of shit like that. You know what I'm saying? But it's all a gimmick. It was all like, even now, like I say, we watch a lot of TV, we binge. That's how we spend our quality time together, because it gives us one thing to focus on while we experience ourselves. And I'm always telling my girlfriend, that the people in the TV shows, they don't act like they interact. The men and the women don't talk. We were watching Girlfriends. How is William and Joan Clayton going to be best buds and don't talk to each other? Why is this dude who is best friends with this woman going to talking to this moderately new guy in his life about this woman right here who is talking to other people about this? Why can they not speak to each other? Because you even watch like Full House. The men talk to the men, the women talk to the women, and then all right, come on, buddy, you can do it. Let's go. All right. He's going to fuck it up, isn't he? They don't speak to each other. There's no dynamic. We were talking earlier about the difference between men and women in their development. When given the opportunity to learn, when given the opportunity to be strong, to lead, to know, women are catching up because from birth, they're capable. You know what I'm saying? As they eat, as they rest, as they develop, as they train, that was me running. As they train, the next generation they can build, because that's what we are. We just keep creating continuations of ourselves. People wish that they could go back in time and do things different. What the fuck do you think having children is? That's you. How do I know that's you? Because 2 and 3 generations down the line, they can swab their little mug and get your fucking name. That's you. You made that. I did this. You know what I'm saying? The literal life allows us to know that. Living a literal life in a bigger context, right? Living a literal life in the context is knowing that your intellect is not you. Your intellect, your concept, your identity, your id, your ego is in this reserve of many biomes with much individual life living in it. If we were living a literal life, we'd be feeding our skin cells. We'd be feeding the bacteria inside our guts that eat fiber and do happy little farts. You know what I'm saying? We are, and because using a literal life means that you're going to run into the obstacle limitations of language. Peace, Charlene. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you being here. Living a literal life means you're going to have limitations to the things you see. We have all this intellect. We have this identity, this ego. We don't think about ourselves as the God of the body. We think about ourselves. How do we serve ourselves? We should be thinking, how do we serve the biology which we have control over? If you teach your kids to be responsible for the guts, for the blood, for the bacteria, for the buggies on your face that eat it. Do you know what I'm saying? We aren't responsible for the small. We barely see bugs. We squish them. We don't recognize their life. Same thing with the food we eat. You know, I mean, you hear the caricature of the Indians used to use all the parts of a buffalo. Do any of you listening ever feel remorse for the life as you're eating meat? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the culture we live in. It's the lives that we were raised to exist in. Do you know what I'm saying? But living a literal life is recognizing, just as we're watching amoebas eat the stuff that they eat when we're looking through the slides, what's the difference in us? We're eating the stuff that's smaller than us. We're making that which we eat smaller. And we aren't just eating the available vegetation, we're eating other life. We all have dogs and cats. I'm not eating my cat. I point to where my cat hangs out. My cat's not there. I'm not going to eat my cat because my cat has a personality. My cat has needs and wants. Hey, algae lives matter. Oh, heck yeah. And no, Derek, I'm not vegan. And that's what I'm saying. But like my girlfriend, she'll be sitting here, eating wings or whatever. You know what I mean? I'll eat wings. I eat wings. I'm not vegan. I'm life. I'm a conscience. I have 49 years in the bank. I make the joke that I got at least 450 left to go to the people at work who look my age. They look like me and them are the same age because the people my age look old. We need to focus on living a literal life. We don't speak about the literal life. We're here on Substack. That's what brings us all together is the Substack. This is the place of new journalism. This is the place where, and I make the joke, we're ungoogleable. We're ungoogleable here because what I'm saying in this conversation will never come up on a search bar ever. You have to invest the time in to do it, which goes back to communications, communities, right? I'm trying to convince people to say the literal thing, which goes against every headline of Midas, because Donald Trump is not devastated. This is not going to ruin his presidency. You know what I'm saying? But we amongst ourselves have to communicate in a better way. We have to say amongst ourselves that living a literal life is more important than just the shorthand gimmick. Like I always side quest, but like I started to talk about with my parents, how I could communicate with them. We grew up in a time, Gen X, latchkey. We grew up in a time where you were a jock. You were a nerd. You were a dropout. You were a beauty queen. You were a cheerleader. You were a wastoid. You were artsy. You were stuck in a gimmick. During the 90s, and this is me kind of editorializing, but in the 90s, the mashup, the hybrid, you know what I mean? That's how Everlast from House of Pain was able to switch over to White Boy Rock. That's how Limp Bizkit was able to get a bomb DJ and still be kind of like a metal-y rock kind of band. The hybridization. When Biohazard and Onyx got together. When Public Enemy and Anthrax got together. And now here we are. This absolute mix. This blend. This hybridization. And as we're in this hybridization, we're still speaking on simple terms of the nerd, the jock. Trying to think of what that lady said in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The dweebies and the zeros, the neo-zoom dweebies. I think that's Rodby. I'm a neo-zoom dweebie. We should get shirts. To communicate whatever that secretary was saying, because saying the word neo-zoom dweebies would only activate somebody who had seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Am I right? Communication. We had so much communication going on Substack. So much communication. Wajahat Ali is on a bajillion times a day. I'm starting to see Ellie Leonard on different things a bajillion times a day. I'm starting to see Dana and Lawrence out. Neo Maxi Zoom Dweeby. Thank you, Jeff. You are a scholar, and I appreciate this type of intellect. Our Substack celebrities are starting to spread out. They're starting to be around. I'm starting to dig it. I dig it because I always have somebody to watch. I saw Natasha is up in the chat, and I just got done watching Natasha. I watched her talk to other people. I watch all the vids. I don't know about you all, but Neurodivergent Hodgepodge. Man, I'm drawing a blank. I know like Tig is somebody that I also got in with. When I first started coming into Substack, it was like, boop, all these people were talking to me and I was talking back, and it automatically felt like a community. Shane Urak's another guy. Just instantly, just started dialoguing with dude, and that was cool. And that's what we have here. But for the people that we do dialogue with, we're able to challenge and push back. For the people that we just watch, we don't have a literal experience. All these people are coming over from corporate media, from CBS, from Fox, from MS Now, from other places. I don't know. I never really watched them. You know what I mean? Once I got off the Sunday shows, they all kind of fell off to me. But yeah, Neuro D, we're watching all these people coming over, and they're using the same narration. They're still calling Republicans conservatives. No, they are not. They are still referring to neoliberalism. It's called the Republican policy. Republican policy. Now, if I am a liberal off the dripping lips of every Republican fucking hater, then what does neoliberalism communicate to somebody who doesn't fucking know any better? When I say neoliberalism, one name needs to come into your fucking mind. William Kristol. You dig what I'm saying? And when I say William Kristol communicating, let's unlock this. The Bulwark. Sarah Longwell. Tim Miller. Andrew Egger. Hey guys, Sam Stein here. I just named 6 faces. 6 individual videos that you will see today. It's William Kristol with a K, Kristol. Because Billy Crystal, I'd be talking about Subs High. Or I'd be talking about Mike Wazowski. But the Bulwark is all Republicans, all the ones that want to go to war, the war hawks, the economic hawks, the ones that wanted to manipulate the stock market. Oh, you know these guys? Literally just because they don't like Trump, they've softened their talk over to the Democratic Party, where they are part and parcel now, where Sarah Longwell is writing books about the big tent that Graham Plattner and Hassan Piker can no longer be part of. But these Republicans, with Republican policies, with Republican judgments, with Republican caricatures. I talk about this kid, and his name's drawing a blank, and I had it on the tip of my tongue like yesterday. He was 13 years old. He'd watched enough Republican media that he was at 13 years old. He was allowed to be a speaker at CPAC. Now he wants to be left the fuck alone. I've messaged him just to be like, hey, dog, yo. He just wants to be left alone. Because it's fucking embarrassing. Because he went up. His parents were paid for him to be a speaker at this place. And while he's a speaker at this place, he said nothing. But he was able to repeat so much of it. Nothing. So much of what we're talking about is nothing. Like something I do appreciate, and I'm not going to always shit on Midas Touch. Midas Touch and Legal AF with Popak, his Signal Chat Midas Touch channel. Just like how the Russians paid the network of people, Midas Touch is that network of channels where it's one more subscription that funnels into Midas Touch. I'm just throwing that out there. But what I do appreciate about Midas Touch is they do have the legal standing. You know what I mean? I do like it when Ben and Popok talk the law because that's their practice. That's them. I like that they pull in Dina Dow. I like that they pull in Karen Freeman Agnifilo. I love when they pull in Katie Fang. God, I love Katie Fang. And it breaks my heart that she joined with Midas Touch because now she is the comet and they are the tail off of her. And it is so offensive to me because it's just mooch and grift. Where had Katie Fang joined, for example, with the Mueller She Wrote network with Allison Gill, that would have been a dynamic, woman-owned, woman-run network, which would have given Allison Gill the YouTube footing, would have given her the Substack footing because Allison Gill has her own niche. But tying up with Katie Fang would have been so beneficial for women. But instead, she signed up with Ben Diddy Meiselas. And why do I say Ben Diddy Meiselas? Because Ben Meiselas interned at Bad Boy for Diddy. And what did he learn from Diddy? And this is my editorializing. He learned, just like Diddy, put yourself in the song and you get artist credit. So for every Katie Fang vid, you are going to see a Ben Meiselas vid with him introducing it, her vid, him telling you to like, subscribe, and send them money because Katie Fang Meiselas. Right? Diddy is doing it again. We don't communicate in the correct way. We don't talk about overseas. We talk about the horror. We talk about the stuff. I know from when I'm listening, I see people's written pieces, but I'm not seeing the dynamic. Trump had a devastating day today. And you'll find out his shoe was untied. But they're going to talk about other stuff and then sell their merch. I'm going to get out because I'm starting to drift back into other stuff. There's no need. I did my talk. I said my thing. It's July 4th. I didn't do anything. I didn't spend money. I didn't leave the house. You know what? Now that I think about it, I went to the store to buy some ginger ale. So PepsiCo, you guys got it. Yes, Derek, that's exactly what they do. It's like Walmart. Whoa, now that I just think about it, that is like Walmart. What Midas Touch does is essentially like Walmart. We really like your product. Would you like to give the rights to us and we will sell your product? Yes, I would. Thank you. You make your money. And then they dwindle your product out. And then you can't make your fucking product anymore because they just bought the rights to it. So you got your base sum, they own the rights, and they are still making fucking money. And now you're knocked out from doing your thing. That's what Midas does. They don't pay all of their contributors. It's like an indie show, a wrestling indie show. No, I'm not going to pay you, but you get the exposure so you can sell your shirts so people learn who you are for next time. Same thing with bands. As a matter of fact, for myself, if I ever wanted to start a business, what up, Miss Hughes? Glad you could join. If I was ever going to start like a business, that's what it would be. I would have an under 18 area, means all ages. I would have a bar in which you could get beverages, you could get food. You know what I mean? Kind of like the Max in Saved by the Bell. But I would have a stage, and it didn't matter if you sucked or not. You could book time to play because that's where you get better. That's where you learn. That's where you network. That's where you get pulled out of a shitty band because you're the one guy with talent. We have lost the garage band. We have lost the small communities of band scenes. Like I know what in Albany, we have this one joint. I'm drawing a blank. I keep wanting to say QE2, but I know that's not it. But you know what I mean? You will watch bankers and babysitters get all fucking rocked and punked out to be a part of a scene. Glens Falls used to be a scene, like kind of in the grunge, post-grunge era. We were still on like that indie rock kind of vibe. I mean, to that point, and like everybody was in a band, but to that point, Dave Matthews has been coming to SPAC, Saratoga Performing Arts Center. Dave Matthews has been coming to SPAC. He says it's his favorite place to come. I shit you not. It's his quote. But he's been coming to SPAC so long. Like I was in high school when he started coming. And now, like, you know, when I'm around, hey, man, you going to Dave? Because I think Dave's next week, something like that. Hey, man, you going to Dave? No, man, I went to Dave when I was a kid. Dave's for younger kids now. And it's funny to think about this. This fucking jam band has been fucking playing for that fucking long that old heads like me don't even go anymore because it's a younger scene now appreciating the exact same fucking music. You know what I mean? We've lost our communication. We've lost our literal communication. We've lost our literal selves. We've lost our ability to speak to each other in direct ways where the word that comes out of my face goes into your ear and means what I mean. Right? Anyway, hold on, Derek. You soak with Dave in a hot tub? That's a big deal. I got a boogie. I'm trying to smoke a little. I'm trying to drink a little. I'm trying to watch some shit on the TV. But that's the reality of us being a community. Because I'm Nick G. I'm a dude on the couch. You know what I'm saying? I am one of many. And there are none like me. None. None of y'all are like me. None of us are like any of y'all. And how do we give ourselves these red state, blue state, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican? We are cheering for teams of which we do not play. We are not represented. We are not involved. We are not being paid to be a part of. We are cheering for teams. I see people wearing Michael Kors t-shirts, and I wear Nick G t-shirts. Because who the fuck is Michael Kors to me that I paid money to have his name on my body when Nick Guyette wants people to know that I'm here? You dig what I'm saying? I gotta go because I'm getting fired up. Woo! I'm Nick G. I'm a dude on a couch. If you're